difficult game, requires tremendous discipline defensively, and clearly we didn't have very good discipline defensively except for one group. And so, the 85 points was a blessing, but it also hurt us because we went back to the beginning where we didn't share the ball very well and we didn't guard. And so that was the problem. Now, we made a good run back at them, and then we didn't guard again. So they grinded us out. They made us guard the whole possession, and we had a hard time with it.
Just a reminder for questions for Coach, use the microphone, please.
Coach, which group did you feel was the best defensively? Was the group that you singled out?
I thought when we played Jakob, and even when we went Jakob and Andre, Jakob and Dixon, and Kareem, when Jimmy and Day were off, I thought we were better. That's just one of those nights where, hey, Jimmy was minus 22. Like, you're not going to win many games when Jimmy's minus 22. Like, he's a really good player, but he didn't guard and he had trouble offensively. I think that affected the game.
You tend to play a very guard-centric lineup, but you had 3 forwards on that group that you're calling, and that's when you guys were able to close the lead. What did you see from those 5 guys, and what made you decide to play those 5 guys?
I just felt like they tried harder defensively than the other guys. We were a little bit bigger. We came to the ball better defensively. We walled up better. We had trouble. Jakob don't put the ball in the basket yet, but he's good defensively. And we got back in the game because we guarded him. Kind of like when Day was out. That's how what our niche was. So we kind of went back to that. I mean, don't be mistaken. They're just as good as any team we played. I mean, they can't do it every single night, but they lost 2 overtime games. They had VCU beat. They could easily have come in here at 6-3. They're a lot like us. They just got snake bit a little bit, but they're a good team. I mean, they lost to Clemson by 1. They beat Maryland. They're good. They're hard. Their style is unique, which if you don't have good discipline defensively, they'll slice you up. And they're good defensively. That's the other part. They're big.
How hard is it to prepare for them, and how much time did you use to do that?
We know what they do. We played them 100 times. It's the same as when his dad was coaching. I mean, it's the same stuff. They're good. They're good at what they do. They screen well. They cut well. And if you have bad discipline, they'll make you pay. And we had bad discipline, and we paid the price. So we prepped up pretty good. They did exactly what we thought they were going to do. We did a good job with the one part, and then when we came back into the game, then they drove us again, and we had trouble.
And how frustrating is it to see Day locked down like that?
I mean, people are going to guard him. I mean, he had a rough night. I think at both ends. And I think sometimes when you're a senior and you're older, I think your offense affects your defense at times. I thought both of them were a little discombobulated defensively. I don't think Jimmy's guarded all year, truthfully. Like not to his capabilities, right? Which is my fault. Like, he should be the best defensive player in the league, and he isn't right now. Again, I try to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. So if it was my own son, I would tell him the same thing. I have a really good relationship with Jimmy, but he didn't guard. And it's been that way for a lot. Now, he steals, but he doesn't always guard. And he's capable of much more than that.
You talked about that lineup that was defending well that you rode in the second half, and that included a few of your higher minute seniors being on the bench for a long period of time. Do you worry about losing any of those guys, playing them less minutes, and then having to call on them again later?
What do you mean, lose them?
Like, just kind of losing them mentally with frustration about their playing time?
I mean, you can't coach like that. You got to play the guys you think are going to win the game. You have to hold them to a high standard. I mean, I held the greatest player in the world to a high standard. I'm gonna hold my best players here to the high standard. So, if they want to get out there, they have to play better, right? Just like everybody else on the team. That's kind of how I see it. Again, like I always let guys build up equity. They have equity, so I went back to them, but it wasn't much better. So they just had a bad night. They'll come back and play well after this. I have complete faith in those guys, but they just didn't have it tonight. And it's not just them. It was the entire group for the most part.
Coming off arguably one of your best performances of the year of Rhode Island, and coming up your big 3-game stretch with St. Bonaventure and Dayton, considering Davidson did come into this game 2-6, was there any potential trap game letdown emotions from you guys? Did you feel the energy coming into the game was fine?
I mean, you'd have to be a fool to have a letdown. They came in here with like a 122 or something like that. They're a good team. I don't care what the record says. They played a tough non-league schedule. They played close in every single game. I thought their last game was their worst game, but they caught Loyola on a good night. I don't think anybody's any different than anybody else half the time. Like, you can't tell me there's any different. Like, Rhode Island's 5-5. They're 3-6. You can't tell me who's better. I couldn't tell you who would win the best out of 5 series, or even throw Loyola in there, or even Richmond in there. Like, clearly Richmond's been more consistent. Loyola's been more consistent, but I think on a given night Davidson could beat them. And I'll take it a step further. UMass could beat them, or somebody else could beat them. It's just one of those leagues. It's a hard league. So if you're not ready to play and you're not playing your best basketball, it's going to be a hard night for you. But the other part of it is everybody's style of play suits different people differently, right? Like, this is a hard one because no one else does what they do. So if you're not really good at that kind of stuff, the warts come out. Like, it's a harder prep even than like a Richmond, because we play against that every day. Everybody runs the elbow stuff, but nobody runs motion anymore. And it's hard if you don't have tremendous discipline and understand concepts. It's hard, and they made us pay. You know, we switched a little bit more in the second half and played a little bigger, and I thought it helped us a little bit in spurts. I mean, we just did some, we foul with 4 seconds on the shot clock. We don't rebound one. Once you're down 13 or 14, your margin of error gets small. You got to make every play. We got it to 4, and then we didn't make every play. We tried. Even our older guys that didn't play great, they tried. They just didn't. It looked like we blew up on every 2 minutes. We just couldn't. Our wind wasn't good.
You guys finished the first half with only 1 assist, and the end of the game was 7. What can you guys do to just get more ball movement, get easier shots?
I mean, we had 20 assists last game, so. I mean, again, I told you that if you look at the numbers, they're a good defensive team. They're very good in the ball screens. They're big. They bring 5 guys to the paint when you drive it. So you have to make the extra pass consistently and then drive the next pass. And we didn't. We had a hard time. As rough a time as we had defensively, we had an equal time offensively. We struggled offensively. We hit a couple stretches where we played pretty good offense, but overall you have to make threes against them to beat them. They're gonna give you some threes and try to contest them, but you gotta make them. So in their losses, they gave up over 9 threes a game. In their wins, they gave up about 5. So they gave up a bunch last game. So you have to make some threes against them because they're so condensed.
Keith, you mentioned discipline at the top. When the defense, which has been the bread and butter, hasn't been executing and the offense doesn't make for over 8 minutes in the first half, just how does that kind of muddle things up just with dropping shoulders or just maybe not having that next play mindset in mind?
Well, emotionally, it's hard when you play bad offense, right? Emotionally, it's hard to gear up defensively when you play bad offense, but we've stressed with them how we have to win. So we've hit them over the head consistently on what we have to do to win. And 72 is too many. Like, it has to be below 60, 64, 65, 58. It is what it is. Right? We're gonna have some nights where we score, but it looks like that's more often than not what it's gonna be for us. But it's hard emotionally. I just wish so Jake, I'll use Jake DeMichael again as an example. He made some mistakes, like he got back cut a little bit, but he's out there competing on every possession. Like it's the last possession of his life as a freshman. I just wish our whole group would compete to that level on every single play. I thought Fusini did the same thing. Like he makes mistakes as well, but for the most part, he's competing on every single play. And I think if we can get that from the rest of them on every single play, I think Dixon for the most part does. He gets tired quick. But if we can compete a little bit harder on every single play, I think better things will happen for us. And then play the right way. Like I told Jim after the game, I said, Jimmy, look, you can drive in there, and if the guy's got a good wall up on you, you got to play off with 2 feet, or it's just like a turnover if you shoot it, right? It's the same thing. If you're trying to score over a 6'11" guy and he's walled up on you and you shoot it, that's just like a turnover, right? I remember years ago, Larry Sanders played at VCU, playing the NBA, and our guys kept driving it in there and he's blocking it, and they drove it in there and he blocked it, and we drove it in there again and we blocked it. And finally I said, man, look, that is a turnover, right? He's blocking that. So that's what I'm talking about as far as discipline. You get in there, you got to play off at 2 feet if you don't have a clear-cut layup. So those are the kind of plays that got us in trouble tonight at both ends. Because if you take that shot early in the clock, you're going to guard for another 25 seconds at the other end. And now you're really grinding out, right? I bet you if you watch that game, time of possession wise, I bet you we were on defense most of the game. I don't know the answer, but my gut is most likely we were on defense most of the game, which is a recipe for disaster.
Coach, one of the things we've talked a lot about this season is David Dixon and his foul trouble. He only had 2 fouls today, and his first one didn't come until the second half. Do you think that's something that's an area he's improved upon?
We'll have to wait and see on that one, right? Like, we'll see the next game. I think Dave's made big strides as a player. I still think he's young in his development. As he continues to realize how good a player he is and what he's capable of, he'll play better. At times he plays really good, and then at other times he just looks young, right? But it's not because he doesn't try. He tries. He gets tired quick. He's like a sprinter that's trying to run a mile. You know what I mean? Those guys are quick twitch people. They're not really good long distance guys. So as he builds up his conditioning, he gets a little bit stronger. I mean, he's had a good year. Especially he didn't do anything all summer. So he's done well for the most part. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.